terrorists is going to have to explain to the American people the case of Richard Reed. Now, while Richard Reed's discomfort is being relieved, we still don't have a plan for what's going to happen at Guantanamo. The President set up 2 task forces to come up with a plan by July. Both task forces missed their deadline, and the President still says he's going to close Guantanamo, plan or no plan. Now, during the campaign last year, President Obama told us that although he might not have years of experience, he had excellent judgment. The kind of judgment and wisdom that we would need in a president facing tough issues. But the record is becoming clear. Wise men don't capitulate to terrorists simply because they bring suit against us. Wise men do not welcome terrorists who want to slaughter Americans onto the American homeland. Wise men don't fret over whether a terrorist was read his Miranda rights. And wise men don't deliver valuable intelligence into the hands of our enemies. The President has adopted a similarly troubling approach in the area of foreign policy. He likes to travel the world and talk about the need to push the reset button with our allies. And he has a pretty clear formula and a method for doing this now. He travels abroad and delivers a speech in which he proclaims moral equivalence between the United States and our adversaries. He accepts false historical narratives, and then he refuses to stand up against anti-American lies. This approach was evident in his Moscow speech last month, where he described the end of the Cold War for a group of Russian students, without ever mentioning that the Soviet Union actually lost the Cold War. Nor did he mention that the forces of freedom, led by brave men like Lech Wałęsa, Ronald Reagan, George Bush 41, Pope John Paul II, and a brave woman named Margaret Thatcher, won the Cold War. In another foreign speech in Cairo in June, the President rewrote more recent history, claiming that the fear and anger caused by 9/11, quote, led us to act contrary to American ideals. Now, it's a line that got him applause in Cairo, but it was a betrayal when he said it there and when he says it here, of the brave men and women in our armed services, in our intelligence operations, and in our law enforcement operations who kept us safe in the aftermath of 9/11. They deserve our gratitude and our thanks. They don't deserve to be libeled by an American president on foreign soil. Earlier on a trip to Mexico City, our president listened to an extended anti-American screed by Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega. And then he let the lies stand. His only response was, quote, I'm just grateful that President Ortega didn't blame me for things that happened when I was 3 months old. Americans expect our president to defend us against lies, not embrace or ignore them. And we also expect our president to know his history. Some of the most dangerous steps this president has taken cause one to wonder how much time he's actually spent studying the history of the 20th century. In Russia and earlier in France, President Obama declared that American nuclear disarmament would encourage the North Koreans and the Iranians to give up their nuclear ambitions. Another Democratic president, one who led us at the beginning of the Cold War, understood the danger of this approach. President Harry Truman, in April of 1950, signed a national security strategy document that pointed out, quote, no people in history have preserved their freedom who thought that by not being strong enough to protect themselves, they might prove inoffensive to their enemies. Avoiding causing offense to our enemies has become a central tenet of President Obama's foreign policy. It was this attempt to placate, to appease, not to cause offense, that prevented President Obama from defending the rights of the brave Iranian men and women demanding free and fair elections. It was this instinct that drove him to declare, while the Iranian mullahs were having their own people shot in the streets, that debate underway in Iran. It's this instinct that seems to be driving our incomprehensible policy of support for a thug in Honduras, a close ally of Hugo Chavez, against the wishes and the constitutional rights of the Honduran people. And it's this desire that drives the president to plead with our enemies to talk at all costs. And it puts America in a position of weakness, one that will not and cannot secure American interests. Now, as a veteran of the State Department, I can tell you that effective diplomacy is not about appeasing your enemy. It's not about unilateral, preemptive disarmament. America has to negotiate from a position of strength. In order to survive as a nation, our president can't function as a disinterested international arbitrator. He can't attempt to stand above America and our enemies. In other words, America needs a commander-in-chief, not a global community